सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.
Barenknuckle Bhakti presents The Gift of Desperation, a Bhakti recovery podcast. This is a 12-step based Bhakti-oriented space. Here we share our experience, strength, and hope in the spirit of recovery from addictions and associated behaviors. Welcome. Hey, hello. Super. I'm so excited that you're here, Kennedy. I have a great guest here, a very special guest, Kennedy Cartwright. Can you believe that's even a real name? That's like where the Democrats and the Republicans meet. It's like Bonanza and Bonanza and the Democratic Party 60s. Sorry about this.
This name just decided, you're gonna be powerful and there's gonna be chaos around you. I say living at my parents' house on a kick butt spiritual journey.
That's a good one. Look, I'm going to turn my camera off just because I want to save bandwidth, just because I'm not having such great internet at the moment. So
I'll just stare at a screen of myself. It'd be great.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, I get that really cute picture of you. This is great.
Did you hear that? There's a cute picture of me. I'm still cute at 56 years old. I'm still cute.
Yes, you are. Oh my goodness, of course you are.
Thank you. Okay, so Kennedy is part of the Bhakti Recovery Group. She is a really valued member, and I really love working with her. She's been coming around. How long have you been coming around to the Bhakti Recovery Group?
Since April, late April.
Since April. So yeah, she's new to Bhakti, sort of newish to Bhakti, and newish to recovery, may I say? Is that true too? So, but has so many like inherent, keen, very reflective, and really amazing reflections. So, Kennedy, giggle.
We were take compliments. That's part of it.
Exactly, receive them. So Kennedy and I have been working on an ACA, on ACA together. That's the Adult Children of Alcoholic and Dysfunctional Families. And but before that, I would like to just ask, so Kennedy, first of all, what brought you to Bhakti and what brought you to recovery? Let's start there.
Well, I mean, if we start with the Bhakti story, do you want the long version or the short version?
Well, we have an hour.
Okay, so I was living up in Portland, Oregon, and I graduated college beginning of the pandemic. Literally, I graduated this spring of 2020, and everything was shut down. There was not a lot to do. I moved back home. I ended up becoming the caretaker for my grandfather at the end of his life. And when things started really progressing to the point where he couldn't even really have conversations much, and then I had a family member exhibiting some behaviors that were really inappropriate in her own grief. And my mom just said, "Hey, didn't you say you wanted to go to Portland? You have friends up there?" I called my friend. They say they have a room, and I was going to leave it in a month. My mom just says, leave in 2 weeks. So I pack up everything, go to Portland. And I got bounced around a little bit up there. And I ended up in this house of absolutely incredible people. And I was, it was one of those things where you wake up in the morning, you smoke pretty much a gram of sativa, and then you also drink way too much cold brew. It's Portland. They got weed and they got coffee. And they got it good. They got the best of it. Not to advertise Portland in that way.
Well, it's your experience, right? It's experiential Portland. So
totally. So I'm total stoner and I'm working a job that I hate, and I'm with some of the most loving, amazing people. And this is the first time in my life that I'm living in a house where I have this amazing relationship with everyone there except for one person that's fine. Nobody had an amazing relationship with that person. So it was just they're figuring it out. And they were in their Saturn return, so it just wasn't favorable for them. Um Basically, astrologically, it was a time of your life where you kind of get kicked around, kicked in the teeth a couple times. Like her friend was killed. It was a really, really tough
Mm.
time for them. But I'm with these people who are exploring gender identity and sexuality, and I'm just like the little asexual living upstairs in the tower. And
I'm the
um,
little asexual living upstairs. I love it. That's like a title to something.
that book, that's the title of my memoir. It's not being written, but it's the title. Um, but and it was just this a really amazing time, but I wasn't realizing that I was addicted to these substances. I was using them to get up in the morning. Like they say that when you have a bunch of things that are in the mode of passion that are rajasic, for those of you who know the Sanskrit, and like caffeine and intoxication is more in the mode of ignorance, there is a disturbance in the body that happens. There is
Mm.
dis-ease. I ended up at one point, based on not liking my job, overworking myself because I was in the people pleasing mode. I got 2 promotions and a raise in 2 months. And like, that's just not normal. Like,
Wow.
I was good at it. It was just a call center job, but most people were struggling to take 7 calls in an hour. I took 10. At one point I took 12. Um,
What
and so
was it?
that was like my average. Um, So I was just running myself ragged, and I was intoxicated and
Mm.
depressed, anxious. They put me on an SSRI after I ended up having a 12-hour panic attack.
Jeez, that's no fun.
No, and I didn't know better, but I drove myself home. I had it at work and I ended up driving myself home while having a panic attack. And I ended up calling my dad, who's a doctor, and just telling him what was going on in one of the small breaks that was happening. And he goes, "Why haven't you gone to the hospital? Apparently, when you have a panic attack like for a long period of time, you can actually be at risk for a heart attack."
Jesus Christ.
I didn't know that. Here I am just trying to self-soothe, and I ended up being on a call with my therapist for like 3 hours, and I had the tools, but it was just this tough day where I realized how out of alignment I was.
Mm.
They got me on an SSRI. I ended up getting off of the SSRI after a couple of months, experienced that lovely pink cloud feeling. Um, but I never stopped the intoxication because, we don't have a lot of research out there about the effects of cannabis. We don't have a lot of research out there about the effects of coffee in these sorts of dosages.
Hmm.
But it was a disgusting amount of everything. And I mean, looking back, I have no regrets because I got the best of it in the place where it's like the best in the States. And so I have no reason to go back to it because now I'm in California and it's expensive and not very good here. Made it really easy to quit. But it got to this point where I was still very dependent on those things.
Mm.
And I didn't realize that it was the addiction to it. Because it was one of those things, going back to what I was saying about how it was like mode of passion, mode of ignorance. They say that you don't know if you're the one doing something or if it's because of the stimulant that you're doing something.
Right.
And quite frankly, nothing was happening in my life. Everything that was happening around me was because of a lot of caffeine and a lot of THC. I was
Mm.
just the vessel. And so it was just this really interesting, and looking back on it, kind of sad time where, but what was nice about it is I embraced the fact that I had anxiety, and I embraced the fact that I had depression. And then I also embraced a lot of very new age spiritual things.
Mm.
And I had this realization going into the summer of 2022 that by the end of that summer, I would be in Los Angeles. I just knew. And
And
I
why Los Angeles, may I ask?
I don't know. I
Okay.
just knew. I was like, I'm going to be in LA. I have dreams I want to do. I was a theater major. I was a creative writing major. There's a lot more you can do down there in the
In
creative.
SoCal, yeah, of course.
And I think I've been very protected by Krishna to not end up doing that because it can be a
Mm,
tumultuous industry. Um, but I just kind of knew I would be down there. So I do 2 months in that summer. I ended up, and while I was in Portland, my job, after I left, I had that panic attack. I left that job and I totally just put faith in at the time the universe and said, I'm going to quit this job and in 2 weeks I'm going to have something else. And that worked out. In fact, I had a higher paying job that was completely remote. The only downside was that I was a content moderator for a news site. So I was reading the breaking news for 40 hours a week.
oh my goodness, that's a mood killer.
Yeah. That did not help the anxiety.
No, definitely not.
No. And so I ended up doing that job for a year.
Holy
And
crap.
I did so well at that job. And I was actually like, people liked me. And it was the first time I had really experienced people liking me because I was good at editing, because I was good at a skill I actually wanted
Mm-hmm.
versus I'm good at something that I don't want to do. And they carved out a position for me. I became a team lead. I got a promotion and a raise. And then I got reached out to by another company that was going to double my pay.
They're poaching you. You're getting poached even.
I was getting poached. And it was to write blogs. And of course, you know, they hire you for one thing. It ends up being something else. I don't like working for them. Um, they wanted me to do this level of work. And they said, if I got this level of work done, they would pay me 40 hours. But if I didn't manage to get that much work done, they actually ended up telling me, they're like, well, you only got this much done. So we're only going to pay you this much.
God.
And I ghosted them, which is not the professional thing to do. Um, but I just was like, cool, I'm out. I didn't feel like correcting them on anything. I just was out.
Yeah, you don't need to be haggling and arguing about your paycheck. That's ridiculous. That's not professional at all.
No, and I was contractor, so I wasn't supported. There's just,
Mm,
yeah, you don't have the same rights. You don't have the rights of an employee, and legally they can't treat you as an employee.
yeah.
So I quit that job. I live off this is summer 2022. I quit that job midsummer. I live off my savings for a month. I get down to 51 cents in my bank account. My parents are calling me freaking out. And I'm just putting full faith in the universe. And the next day I'm dropping my friend who lives in the same house as me off at the airport. And as I'm driving back home, I have this moment where Paramatma speaks to me. And it was like this vibration from the heart that was so wonderful and so loving that I actually just ended up sobbing. And it just said, go. It
Hmm.
just said, go. So I was like, cool, I'm going down to LA. So I call my cousin who lives in Los Angeles and she says, yeah, you can come stay with me for a couple weeks. That day, I sell everything I own except for 2 Home Depot-sized boxes, a carry-on suitcase, a tote bag, and a backpack. Pack up my car and drive down to Ashland, Oregon, which is where I went to college. And it's funny because on the way there, I brought coffee with me. I drank the coffee, and I got so sick drinking that coffee. I never drank coffee again.
Oh my God.
And not to say I haven't had caffeine because I love a matcha, but I never had coffee again. No cold brew, no decaf, no nothing. My stomach revolted. And so then I drive from Ashland to Santa Cruz. And then I drive from Santa Cruz to Los Angeles. And I was only in Los Angeles for a week and a half. But two things happened. And one of them I didn't find out about until a couple weeks ago. But I just foot to the pavement, had a great time. But one of the things that happened was I ran into a devotee, Ujjwala Mataji. She's a Prabhupada disciple. And I didn't remember meeting her, but she remembered meeting me. And she's in Santa Cruz now. not to say where I'm from. Maybe you can edit that out. I don't know.
I don't edit it. I don't edit,
Oh,
but
well then.
well, you don't live in Santa Cruz anyway, so it doesn't matter. I
Yeah,
mean,
fair enough. But so to be triangulated. Um, but I ran into her and she remembered me. And she that was just a kind of an amazing thing to be like, cool. So like one of the first devotees I ever met, like she's back in my life.
hmm,
And then about like 3 days into being in LA, my cousin had to go to New York. So I had unpacked. We were having a great time, but about halfway through her being gone, I realized like I have to move again. Like I just know it's going to happen. It's just my instinct. So I pack everything up. She comes back from New York and she goes, "You didn't have to pack up. What's going on?" I was like, "I just have a feeling." And she goes, "Okay, well, got to work with those." The next day she tests positive for COVID
hmm.
and I can't stay there anymore. So all my stuff's already packed up and she needs to be in there to lie down because she's really sick. And so I just put everything into my car and I go sit at a fountain at the Americana and kind of just cry because what I had wanted to happen, I was materially frustrated. What I had wanted to happen wasn't going to happen. But Krishna still fulfilled my wish. He still fulfilled my desire so that I would end up back home with my parents, stuck there because it was still, the still semi lockdown. Years, like 2 years into it, of people are still kind of going out, people are still wearing a lot of masks, people still kind of social
Hmm.
distancing, and I just like fully was hit by my depression, very much relying on smoking weed. I was smoking a lot, at least 2 grams a day. Um, and I remember I floated like that for 2 months and I had went to like a Buddhist meditation thing and tried to do that. And no offense to them, but that was probably the most drama in an organization I had ever experienced. And all I was doing was volunteering to write their newsletter.
Oh my goodness.
So I ended up leaving that. I was in the midst while I was trying to figure out where I wanted to do because I was looking for service. I wanted to do something for someone. I wanted to find
So,
something.
so at that time, doing all this stuff, all this movement, all this stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Are you searching for something deeper? Are you
Oh
searching
yeah.
for a higher power? And how does this Prabhupada disciple come into play?
So the entire time I'm just like, I trust, like to me at the time it was universe. I didn't know Krishna yet, but I
Hmm.
still thought he was a person. And I was just saying, "You've got me. Where are we going? Take me where you want to go." I, was walking around with no money. I had 51 cents in my bank account and it was just enough to get like one tiny amount of food from the bulk section. And that was my snack at that time. Like I was living on nothing because I was trusting, okay. It was like staring down the universe and saying, "You're supposed to take care of me. So where are we going to go?" Like
Hmm.
it was playing chicken with the universe. And it was this wild moment realizing like, no, I was being led here, but I was being led through the last legs of some of the greatest suffering of my life, of just not feeling like I was worthy of being taken care of. And that, if I had a plan, it was going to fall apart. So what's the point? And
Hmm.
my best friend of, oh geez, at least 7 years now. I don't know the math, since 2016, 2017, 7 years. My best friend of 7 years, practicing Bruja, astrologer, tarot reader. Like I've always been surrounded by the esoterics. I used to read tarot. And at that time, I was like fully just in it. I was so in love with the ability to just give it to God, or in this case, the universe. It wasn't God to me yet. God
Hmm.
was a dirty word at the time. And the Srila Prabhupada disciple didn't even come into the picture until now, where I realize that even back then, Krishna gave me someone who was association. And without me even knowing the value of it. She remembered I had a buzz cut at the time. She remembered what I looked like, what I was wearing. And she's like, yeah, I just had a pleasant conversation with you and I didn't think I'd ever see you again. And here we are, pretty good friends after only had, like, literally, we knew each other for 24 hours. And I was like, I love you. You're fabulous. But to me, it's that realization that even in moments you don't realize it, God is looking out for you. Even in moments you don't realize it, there is love being inserted into your life in ways that you may never understand. But because I was fortunate enough to see it, I can understand that even before I knew his name, he was holding me. He recognized my attempt to surrender to him. And even though I spent 2 months back in Santa Cruz, moving back in with my parents, which is a horrible, horrible place to be for someone who just really like, who wanted to do intoxication in a way that they didn't want to do intoxication, who wanted to do life in a way that they didn't want to do life. Just, you know, and especially coming from a place where I was in that total victimhood mindset and blaming my parents for what was going on, and kind of having it out, that inner teenager moment without ever really, I never got to express my inner teenager. My sister was the troublemaker. You know, I don't want to out her stories, but some things happened in her adolescence that I watched happen that made me go, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. And so I was on my best behavior because my sister was not.
Yeah.
And there was also a part of it too, where my sister was my childhood bully. I never got to escape my childhood bully, and she was brutal. Because of
Bully?
because of our relationship, the first time that
Did you say bully?
bully.
Bully. Oh, okay. I thought you said bully. I was like, what's a bully?
Might
What's
have a
a
little bit of an
bully?
accent going on. I don't know.
Bully.
But she like I because of the way she treated me, and because the fact that my parents never believed me when I talked to them about it. I was depressed at 5 years old. And the first time I expressed not wanting to be alive, I was in first grade. And I carried that through with that understanding of my parents will never hear me out. I am meant to suffer. My sister was kind of pegged as the golden child. And my parents will deny that, but it doesn't stop the comparisons from being seen, or the fact that I never got to have my own identity. Every time that she would do something, she would join a certain sport, I would get the hand-me-down. She became the captain of the cheer squad. My parents put me in 2 different cheer teams at the same time, one competitive, one school, and I hated them both. And I would tell them, like, I don't feel good. These are my symptoms, things like that. Come to find out, I was having the symptoms I was having, the nausea in my stomach from overeating sugar, and the lightheadedness and the dizziness from low blood sugar and having to go to the nurse's office a lot of the time. I was a type 1 diabetic. I didn't get diagnosed.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, you're type 1 diabetic.
Yeah. I wasn't diagnosed until 2019, until my second year of college. No, excuse me, 2016, until my second year of college. And the signs are all there. But because I never felt like I was listened to, my parents even chewed me out after the diagnosis. They're like, why didn't you tell us your symptoms? And I was like, I did. And they're busy. And I know that part of ACA is like, you will defend your parents when you're not supposed to. My parents are genuinely really wonderful people. They are so busy that maybe like, part of this is not a true thing, but this is the narrative that happens in my brain, that like they probably just shouldn't have had me. And one child was enough. And they didn't have time for a second, especially one who never followed the status quo, or when they tried to, it ended up being like an ego trip. And that was never fun to deal with, talking about myself. But I'm 2 months into being home, to finish the story there. I'm 2 months into being home, and I go to a coffee shop and I was this time I was in downtown Santa Cruz, spent a lot of time there. And I sat everything aside and prayed for the first time in maybe 7 years, and just begged for clarity. I was in tears, and I just said, listen, I can't hang on much longer. If you don't tell me what I'm supposed to be doing here, then I don't think I can stick around. 5 minutes later, I had the Bhagavad Gita in my hand.
Where'd you get
Less than
it?
5 minutes.
It fell from the sky.
Pretty much. I when I finished that prayer, immediately when I finished that prayer, an alarm on my phone went off to let me know that I needed to go to my car because the meter was going to run out. It was giving me 10 minutes to get there. So I pack up everything and I start walking down the street and I run into a book distributor. And it was funny. He was so quiet. He was so polite. And he was just politely trying to stop me. And I immediately stop, turn, give him my full attention. And we have a conversation. And having now gone on book distribution, I was probably the easiest book he's ever given out.
Ah.
He didn't even have to ask for donation. I was like, I need to give you something for this. Like reach in, I give him all the money in my wallet, which is like only $11, but it was all the money I had. And I was just like, yeah, you know. And I started attending this online community called Bhakti community that Monday. And then I went to the temple for the first time December, so a month later, because I got the book in November of 2022. And then I did an entire year where I pretty much didn't miss a weekend. I didn't miss a festival. I didn't miss a Bhakti community meeting. I treated it kind
Wow.
of like a Materialists Anonymous program,
Mm-hmm.
and it was amazing.
And how
It
was your consumption, your weed consumption?
come that um, it was April 10th. It was a Monday of 2023. I woke up one morning and just said, I'm done. I'm not going to smoke anymore. And I haven't since. And then 2 weeks later, I said, I'm not going to eat meat anymore. And I haven't since. And about a month ago, I woke up with that same feeling and said, I'm not going to eat sugar anymore. And I haven't since.
Wow.
It's all the faith. It's all the surrender. It's uncanny and it's experiential. And it would not make sense to me if it had not happened.
Right.
But we struggle for a reason. And so often, especially before this program, especially before ACA, the narrative was I am struggling for no reason. Like there is no purpose behind this. The universe just wants to kick the teeth out of me. And that's not, it's not a way that you can treat yourself. It's not a way you can look at the world, because if your narrative is suffering, one, you're in the mode of ignorance and you will drag other people down into it because misery loves company. But trying to face that narrative, trying to face your mind. The Gita itself says that the mind is like trying to tame the mind is like trying to tame the wind. And right, that's what this
Do you
program
ever
is.
read? Do you ever read Ecclesiastes?
No, but I've heard some quotes. Go for it.
Well, there's no quotes, but just read Ecclesiastes.
Okay.
It's Christian, but it's Bhakti.
Before the form of God that is Krishna had my back, which he always had my back, but before that was my understanding of him, it was Christianity. I didn't grow up in a religious household by any means, but I went to a Christian camp as a kid because it was safer. And I loved worship. I loved singing and dancing. I was that kid in the audience who was in tears because we're singing and dancing for God.
I could see that with you.
Oh
I
yeah.
think you're also a very, very sincere, passionate person.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I just kind of show up and I don't know how to do things without sincerity. I said mentioned one of the things I majored in was theater. And in theater, so often they teach you how to lie, but I felt like it was always more effective if you took the shoes you were walking in really sincerely, even if the character was an absolute fool. Because when you are looking at another human being in the world, when you are trying to understand where someone comes from, fictional or otherwise, it's an act of empathy. And personally, thank you, ACA, for pointing this out. It is easier for me to have acts of empathy for everyone but myself.
Mm.
Because if I have an active empathy for myself, it requires me to have a searching and have a searching inventory of all these stories I tell myself, of these narratives I've made up that end in self-harm in their own right. And it's so easy to do that when I grew up as the scapegoat kid.
Mm.
And then I became willing to be the scapegoat in all other situations. And, at a certain point, what helped me realize was, what helped me realize I was the scapegoat was also the same thing that helped me realize I was the problem, or at least in this specific circumstance that I was the problem. Because when everyone leaves you, you kind of have to realize that the one factor they all left was you. Which I found out what I call the fun way. I had a group of friends, one from my hometown and then up in college, who met each other, hit it off, and then left me behind. And because I was trying to have boundaries, one of them really didn't like that I was having boundaries and told a narrative to the others about what those boundaries meant. And they, for a period of 6 months, I kind of really put up with it. Like, they kind of started coming in. They made me be alone on my 21st birthday when I took them all to a theme park. And my parents paid out of pocket for the hotel and everything. Like, it was a gift as much to them as it was to me. And then, it was just setting boundaries, seeing these things from that point forward, where finally it got to the point where I, several months later, got so sick I was in the ICU. And they cut off contact with me while I was there.
Wow.
So they left me for dead in the ICU. And I was the sickest person in the hospital. I was told if I had come in 2 hours later, I would be dead. And that was a testament to my lack of caring about myself, as well as my addiction to food and sugar. And, when you're addicted to something and you want it, and I wasn't the greatest friend to them, but it didn't warrant how I was being treated. And when I set boundaries, you set boundaries with people and they don't like it, they'll leave.
Yep. That's definitely been my experience. So how did you decide to get into recovery, and how did you find the Bhakti recovery group, and how do these two worlds combine for you?
Wow.
Those are three questions. That's a three.
Yeah. I started listening to your podcast.
No way. How did you find that? Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I started listening to your podcast the week it came out, and I found it through Wisdom of the Sages. And there was one specific episode. I will literally look it up so I can say it. But it was about overeating, and there was something said in it where she said, do the math. We all are trying to fill a God-sized hole, but if God is love, do the math.
Who said this? Was it someone I was interviewing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say,
it wasn't me. It definitely wasn't me. Oh, I know who it was. I know exactly who it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Anjali.
Yeah.
The episode's literally called That God-Size Hole.
Yeah, Anjali is a very intelligent young lady.
It was just, I downloaded the episode. I still have it saved. I'll go back and listen to it occasionally. And it kind of was this moment for me where I realized, like, it doesn't matter how big or small the story is, the addiction is, the problem is, you have to at least try for recovery to see if it's possible. And as the person who's willing to be the scapegoat, I've always been willing to be the martyr. I've always been willing to feed that victimhood narrative, because you can't be the martyr really without being also the victim. And if you're carrying that cross on your back, no one wants to help you carry that.
Oh, yes, that is true.
That is a self-imposed affliction.
Unless you find the perfect codependent in their disease, they'll help you carry that cross.
I mean, well, sometimes that perfect codependent is the cross.
Ah, that's a good one. Yes.
And I've had my fair share of, codependent things. And it's been funny because in my life, I can look back and say, Krishna gave me this friendship where on my 19th birthday, this person didn't like that they couldn't control what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to play this game. Everyone was super down to play this game. They didn't want to play this game, so they stormed off. That night, I got a call from them. They had admitted themselves to a psych ward and demanded that I come see them.
Holy Mother of Mary.
Yeah. So, just things like that, where like the people I was around, your environment will reflect your inner environment. Your outer environment will always reflect your inner environment.
Jesus, I have
And
no
what
friends at the moment.
I mean,
It's
for me,
barren. It's barren. My social life is completely barren. I don't meet anyone. I like all I do is just like travel for retreats. And otherwise I'm just here at home with my family. That's it. And I go boxing. So
that's awesome. But like in the moments where I've been completely alone, I remind myself that the entire plate is empty because it's about to be filled.
oh, that's sweet.
You know,
Or I've
what?
emptied my plate and I don't want it filled. Thank you.
Yeah. Or we're gonna put this plate away for a while. I don't know why
Yes,
I'm
we
walking
are
around with
definitely going to
this.
put the plate away for a while. We're not taking the plates out. We're locking them cabinets for a while.
We don't talk about what's in those cabinets.
Let's not talk about the plates in the cabinets.
Don't talk about the plates. But no, seriously, because what I'm also realizing is that like there's an entitlement to walking around this world and saying my plate's going to be full. There is no reason that we should ever expect our plate will always be full.
It's
Unless
true.
we are grabbing things off the shelves and putting things on our plates. The best things that have ever come to me have come of their own accord because I was ready for them.
It's so true. It's a wonderful statement.
And I wouldn't have been ready for the ACA program even 6 months ago. I wouldn't have been ready for the ACA program, especially not when I was in Portland, not when I was in LA, because I was so determined that it was going to be me and God, and
Mm.
that's it. Everybody can go after themselves.
I'm sorry if I'm turning the camera off and on, but
Oh, you're fine.
I think it's terrible. Like I want to have a conversation. It feels so bad having the video off, but every time I turn it on, you seem to like lag a little bit. It's the bandwidth. Anyway, but it's fine for now.
But it's this thing where I realized like I got into ACA because it was a recovery-based program that wasn't going to shove Christianity down my throat, that wasn't going to shove something else down my throat,
Mm.
that was going to respect the fact that this this gentle blue cowherd boy, which I love because I when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to believe in and where I wanted to gain my knowledge, I had this realization that I would much rather believe in the cosmic turtle than that we are on a rock hurling aimlessly through space. Intentionality and story mean a lot. I
Yeah,
would much give me the cosmic turtle.
yeah, absolutely. I get it. It makes a lot of sense.
And so now we have, you know, this God who just wants to have a loving personal relationship with you. And he's putting ACA 12 step in front of me and saying, better yourself. I have things for you in the future you need to be strong for. And, you know, my mantra since I was a kid was the universe is never going to give you anything you can't handle. It's going to feel like you can't handle it. it's going to feel like you can't handle it. But the universe is never like I've survived 100% of my worst days. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of a cliche phrase at this point, but it's true. And I will continue to survive 100% of my worst days. And the one day that I can't survive, then great, we're moving on to the next life. But
So how does how does a spiritual day look for you? Like what would be a day, the perfect adjoining of the 12 steps and perfect adjoining of Bhakti in one? And what would that day look like for you?
do I have to have a job during this day?
No, hell no. You don't have to do anything. That's your perfect day.
Oh,
It's your perfect day, Kennedy Cartwright.
I wake up in a women's ashram and it's women's only. I wake up in a
I'm with
women's
you. I'm
ashram.
with
It's
you.
women's only, except for
I'm
some
free.
teachers who come in and out because spiritual masters I trust are living beyond the bodily platform.
Okay, I agree with you on that. Okay, I'm there. I'm there. I'm with you. Can I be with you?
Yes. Oh, you
Okay,
have to
I'm
be.
with you.
That's part of the
Okay.
perfect day.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm with you. I'm with you.
So we wake up, we're there, we're at this ashram, and we go to Mangal Artik, and it's beautiful. And we have Sri Sri Radhamata Mohan that we're worshiping. And because I love it, these specific deities, they have PJs because some deities get pajamas, and I love that. And their PJs are fancier than even my nicest clothes.
Oh my God, I love it.
They have pajamas at the ashram down in Los Angeles, and now I just need every deity to have pajamas. So in this perfect day, they have pajamas.
That's so cute.
And then we have Guru Puja and Bhagavatam class. And it's open discussions, and everyone can really sit with each other in their hearts. And the kirtan is beautiful, and it starts slow. And then by the end of it, it's a full blown dance party at 5 a.m. And, and then we move on to the day, and we're all going off to do service. And there's a garden, and whoever wants to be on flower service, nobody's getting forced into flower service because they're a woman.
I'm
And
not doing flower service.
then don't do flower service, but you can still walk through the garden.
Okay.
And, people are picking flowers.
What about a
And then
meeting? Is there a meeting in your perfect day?
oh, yes. Oh,
Is there
yes.
12-step work in your perfect day?
In the middle of all of this, all of the discussions that people have are all Krishna consciousness about improving each other and their own lives. And it's based on the foundation of 12 steps. And then we all come together midday, right before lunch. And we have whatever ACA meetings, whatever AA meetings, whatever recovery meetings we need. And we have those together, and then we go eat together. And then after lunch, maybe people meet with their sponsors, or they continue service, or they go read, or they have just a little bit of relaxation time, or they go to the midday artiks. And then we come and we have another meeting right after dinner. And so we all go to bed feeling like we've released everything, and we can start the next morning, and we can go to Mangal Artik feeling fresh.
Oh
And
my gosh, that sounds like a perfect day. Let's start an ashram.
let's start an ashram. Where do you,
Yeah.
Hawaii?
Yes. Actually, I'm going to hit up Kastuba and Raghu and all of that. I'm going to hit them up. We should start. They were talking about doing an ashram in Mayapur,
Oh, wow.
like a wisdom of the sages like thing, and it should be for women first because there's always an ashram for men. So we'll do the women's ashram first. I'm gonna push him on that. You hear this, Raghu? You're doing a woman's ashram.
Well, what's so funny to me is like at the beginning of this experience too, when I was in Portland, I was with the association. You become your association. I was with the association of a lot of people who were genderqueer. Nothing wrong with that. But what I realized at that time, I came to the conclusion that my labels were that I am asexual because I've never cared. It's never been on my mind. I've never wanted it. And I've never been attracted to anybody. And then that I was non-binary or gender fluid, one of the two, because I just didn't identify with my body. Then comes the spiritual platform. I don't
Then it all
identify
made sense.
with my body. I'm a spirit soul. I just happen to be in the body of a woman, and I'm having this experience. And so when we have the opportunity to come together as women without the guidance necessarily of men specifically, or with the guidance of men who have respect for women, it's this amazing place where femininity becomes a boon. Femininity becomes an expression. And in the Gita, there's a part of a purport where it says women are generally not that intelligent. It is in the definition of intelligence where it is logic and reasoning, because that was the definition of intelligence at the time where Srila Prabhupada was going to school. And that is the definition of intelligence in the Vedas. Vedic intelligence is logic and reasoning, because when you get emotions involved with it, it can become very hard to sort through the information.
Sure, because we're more emotionally intelligent.
Yeah. However, in Bhakti, it is a boon to be a woman. You have a leg up, because to be emotionally attached to the spiritual, to Krishna, to devotional service, that is the purpose of Bhakti. And so automatically logic and reasoning can get in the way of that. And so it's kind of this beautiful poetic moment where, you can go through all the Vedas, you can go up the yoga ladder, you can start in the seated positions of asana, you can move on to jnana, you can head up to dhyana, which is the sitting and meditating for thousands of years, or you can skip the whole thing and just love. And part of this whole process has been realizing that I am in my own way if I'm not loving myself. I cannot progress further in my bhakti path if I do not realize that I myself am deserving of the love of God and the love of others and the love of my family. I will continue to overstep my own boundaries. I will continue to sacrifice my well-being for the sake of other people's projects and service. And I had someone say to me yesterday as like an excuse for, essentially trying to convince me to stay on a project that I don't feel safe on at this point, saying like, well, this is service. And I'm like, service should never be at the expense of your well-being. It should be joyful.
Mm.
And those aren't my words. Those are the words of my Guru Ma. It should be joyful. And you have to be able to take care of yourself in order to move forward on these projects. And so if I'm somewhere where it's not working, the energy that you make something with becomes the foundation for what you have created, which is also one of the things that helps me realize Krishna made this universe. He is divine love personified. The foundation of this universe is personified divine love. The foundation of us as souls is personified divine love. We're covered.
Mm. Beautiful.
We're covered. And it's why I can look at somebody and say, you know what, I bet you're a great person, but right now you're yelling at me or you're yelling at a service worker. So I'm going to shut you down because the compassionate thing to do right now is teach you a lesson or to walk away or to ignore you or to go take care of myself.
Right. And so are you learning these kind of things through recovery process, through working the
Yeah.
12 step?
I mean, one of the most incredible pieces of information that I received, I was reading the yellow book. It's like the ACA workbook,
Yes.
which I think everyone should work through.
So do I.
Everyone, especially in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy. I'm reading through it and it's saying that it is the inner child that connects with the divine. It is the inner child and the healed inner child that is the connection with God. And my inner teenager, when I was in Portland, got to hold the reins. My inner teenager, and honestly, I'm not even mad about it. I had a great time while it lasted, even though it caused a lot of issues. But that's the mode of passion. At first, it tastes like nectar, and then it tastes like poison. And when I was in ignorance in college and through the education programs, because I never got along with it, that was ignorance. It just was delusion from beginning to end. But right now, the recovery process is daunting and intimidating. And at times it tastes like poison. But at the end of it, it tastes like nectar because I come to these realizations where I have to recognize that there is post-traumatic stress disorder involved. I have to realize that I am exacerbating my issues by not having compassion for myself because I'm codependent and willing to give these things to other people. And don't even get me started on the call out that is the laundry list. Oh my God. Oh my God. Reading that was like a hug and a punch to the face at the same time.
A hug and a punch. I love it. A hug and a punch in the face. How funny is that? Oh God.
Recovery, like everything in Krishna consciousness has led me to come to the Bhakti recovery group.
Wow.
Because it forced me to realize that I am capable and that I am smart. And it helped me being in Krishna consciousness has allowed me to unlearn some of that helplessness that was conditioned in my upbringing.
Right.
But if I don't do something with that foundation, if I don't put it to work, which is what the Bhakti recovery program does, is it puts me to work.
Yeah.
Then there is no point in having the information. What is the point of a book if you never open it?
Faith without works is dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
I'm
is
not willing to feel dead anymore.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
I've spent the majority of my life wanting to die. I used to pray accidents happen all the time. Just let one happen to me.
I used to pray that too. I know that prayer.
It's a tough
And
one.
I just said, just let it be quick, or give me cancer, give me terminal cancer. I prayed for that a bunch of times.
But the fact that prayer was answered.
They weren't answered. No, not yet, at least.
That means we have purpose. So if there's
Yeah.
anybody listening who has prayed for something just to take them out, you're still here because you're meant to do something. We don't know how big or small it is, but anything you add to this world that is positive is worth it.
Hallelujah.
Everything you add to this world that is positive makes you stronger and makes everyone around you stronger. And if it's a spiritual path, it benefits everybody. And
Oh,
if it's
yeah.
not, maybe you're here because then you find that you have a calling for bioengineering and you create a cure for a disease. I don't know. Maybe you save someone's life in the future just by having a conversation with them. But I'm so glad I stuck around, because the person that I look at in the mirror now is someone I actually am so happy I've gotten to meet. And if this is where I'm starting on my recovery journey, and, you know, I started a little bit earlier with therapy, but he didn't address these things so specifically. The literature is there because there are commonalities, and none of us have ever been in this alone. But if this is where I'm starting, I'm really looking forward to who I become. I'm only 27. I'm a baby. Not according to my parents, who would really like it if I would not be living with them as long as I have. But you know what? It's expensive here, and it's hard to find a job. And
Well, you're not alone. You're not alone in that. It is expensive. It's not like you can do that anymore these days. People can't just move out. Like when I was young, I could just move out. It wasn't expensive. But you kids have a really hard time. You really do.
yeah, but
Are
explaining
you,
that
you're a Zer, right? No, you're not a Zer, are you?
I'm 97, and that kind of is the cusp of both. So I'm like,
Okay.
I'm the youngest of the millennials and the oldest of the Gen Z, but I'm not
Okay.
great with technology, so I'm probably more of a millennial.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, millennials are better than we are. Gen X's, we're terrible. I'm like,
Yeah. I'm Cartwright IT at this house. I set up like all the Wi-Fi and the mesh network and help my
I
mom
love it.
things all the time. But you know, it just, it's interesting to see how in life the only things that have truly mattered to me are the spiritual pursuit, the people I meet along the way, and the recovery that happens in the process. And the
Mm,
fact that the Bhakti Recovery Group is loving devotional service, the mood of loving devotional service, combined with steps that have been proven to work.
mm,
There's nothing like it. And it's such a gift and a miracle that I found myself here. And it's a gift and a miracle that I, can work through these steps with you, and that I can hear this podcast and learn from other people, because we're not meant to go through anything alone.
oh,
In
no.
all of the Leela, Krishna never comes down alone. In all of the pastimes, which is what Leela means to those who don't know, he never comes down alone. In fact, his associates come before him and after him. He is bookended by love.
I've never even thought about that. That's so true.
I I had to think about it because I felt really lonely, and I I love Shastra because I love the scriptures, because it's love poetry to the world. And yes, it's about Krishna and it's about his associates, but it's also about us, because we can
Yeah.
extrapolate these events that have happened, these wonderful, magical, incredible narratives, and see the psychology behind them and say, oh, I recognize myself as the quote unquote villain in this story. And then you
Mm,
realize by the end of the story, the villain actually, you know,
he's blessed. Yeah.
so blessed. And maybe right now I'm going through a Brahmin's curse, which is a blessing in disguise.
Right.
What it is, a blessing in disguise. You know, I'm in this place where I have to face down the fears about myself, the things I fear about reality, because of the narratives I've told myself since my upbringing. I've 2.5 decades of experience scaring myself. And I'm not willing to live in my own fear. There's a healthy amount of fear. It's out there. We experience it, but there's no
Yeah.
reason to stop ourselves from living our full potential. And because of the instances of my childhood and the stories that I cling to, I'm stopping myself. And the ACA program addresses it. It helps me realize what the real narrative is, or at least as close to it as I can get, because I'll never know on other people's perspectives.
Hmm,
And I
hmm.
love my parents, but they definitely have a very specific story that they have told themselves about me. And it's not always helpful. They think it is. And they think because they have more years of experience that they know more. but I'm a firm believer that nobody knows everything. Adults don't know everything. Legally, I am an adult, and that is a joke, but I don't know anything. I don't know much. But what it comes down to is that nobody knows everything except God. And if he's
Mm,
the one leading this path, I am in good hands. I have served at the hands of many bad masters.
yeah.
And right now, in just step one alone, I get to surrender to the only being who, beyond all shadows of doubt, beyond all reason, beyond all understanding, causelessly loves me fully, completely, unconditionally, and has, not just in this life, but in every single life I have lived, including when I was a gnat on a windowsill.
Mm.
And that's the person who's leading me through Krishna consciousness. That's the person who's leading me through the ACA program, through the people in it.
You know, you've hit on something that you know, when you were saying that you've given your you know, you surrendered to so many, you know, false masters or and I think often that our ego is the worst of the false masters ever, ourselves, the
Yeah.
little I. And that's why keeping that orderly as possible through working a program is only going to help us be able to view other people at their best. Because if I'm looking to the world at my worst, the people are going to look like their worst. And if I'm looking through the lens of my best, the cleanest possible street that I can do through my program and through Krishna consciousness, then I'm going to look at the world that way. It's just that simple. And I think in the last like 10 minutes that we're going to talk, maybe we can talk about how what you think and that a 12-step program can help, let alone just Krishna consciousness movement, but every single religious movement or society or community. You know, how that deep self-reflection, that combing of the ego, that delousing our egos is going to help us be better people for each other.
I mean, just to jump right into that, the 12-step program, I think you said this previously on a podcast too, but the 12-step program mirrors really beautifully the narrative of the Gita.
Mm,
It, you know, we are looking for happiness. We are looking for safety. We are looking for stability in everything outside of ourselves, when in reality, the foundation for all of those things and more is within us. And so, if we're able to look inward and we're able to go through the scientific process, and the Gita is a spiritual science, and the 12-step program is scientific spiritualism, because
mm,
I think that I found that the 12 steps definitely go more into the science. It's a repeatable process.
mm.
It will be done with other people. It has been done with other people. And it will continue to be done with other people, and it will continue to work as long as you put the effort in. And with the Gita, it's also experiential, but you can, to me, it's like spiritual science, and then the other one is scientific spiritualism.
That's a very nice. It's a very nice way of looking at it. I would agree, I would tend to agree with that.
But when you're out in this world and you're trying to find hope, you're not going to find hope where you lost it. It's not like you dropped your keys and you're searching for them. It's like I don't know if this is the right saying, but I'm going to use it anyway. But hope is a thing with wings. It
Hmm.
moves. It's its own energy. And if you will experience powerlessness. This world is constantly changing, adapting, and evolving, and we have to constantly change, adapt, and evolve. And when you're coming from an addicted mindset, change
We
sucks.
no like changey, no
No,
like
we hate it.
change.
Especially when we found something that even in the moment makes us feel good, even if in the long run it doesn't. If for a second it gives us something good. we don't want to mess up anything. We're like, okay, no one touch anything. You know, nobody touch it. Don't change it. Don't trip the wire. You're gonna ruin it. And then you start getting mad at everybody else.
Oh God, it's so funny.
And I'm facing that right now. And so it's like the perfect timing to start this program, because I know in this program I'm going to be moving around in life and I need to go get a steady job. I can't keep doing these like 3 different part-time jobs because I need steady income. And that's something that I need to do that, you know, now that I at least better understand the term amends, I'm starting to realize a little bit like, oh, you mean doing right by myself counts? Like, you're not supposed to be doing right by myself. And it's okay to suffer a little bit. We're gonna suffer in this life, but if there's a why behind it, that's what Krishna consciousness does. And bringing that into the Bhakti recovery group, bringing that into the 12 steps, I will feel uncomfortable in this process. My safety nets will feel like they are being torn apart in this process.
Right.
Because there is something better to catch me. There is something better that is going to catch me. There's something better I'm going to fall into. You know?
I like that.
This life is not solid ground. It is temporary.
Would you be interested in writing the summary of this and sending
Sure.
it to me? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Just write the summary of this and then send it to me, because I think you're so eloquent. And I'm always like, okay, I'm just going to take the catchy sentence and slap it up there. But it's always nice if someone else has
I mean, you'll have to like send me the recording of this so that I can like send me the Zoom call so I can write it, because I'll say things and I don't remember what I said necessarily. Like I know the essence of it, but I never remember the words exactly.
Yeah, no worries. Well, the essence is all we need. We don't need any kind of.
Yeah. But you know, that even in of itself is, if the essence is all you need, then if we're choosing the essence of recovery, you know, and we're willing to at least start there, choosing what's good for you is so hard in this world. I was talking with my dad the other day of how oftentimes people are sick because they don't eat well. But when they're that sick, they don't want to cook. And so then they keep falling into this cycle of microwave meals and boxed mac and cheese, and they exacerbate the issue. They make it worse. And so, you know, we live in this world where so often we say, I am sick, but to recover requires me to do something that I
invest.
don't want to do. So I'm going to keep being sick because I know how to be sick.
Yeah, it's so true.
And I'm tired of being sick. I'm tired of playing the victim. I'm tired of bringing
Sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Sick and tired of being sick and tired. And quite frankly, I think the people around me are sick of it too. And I'm not doing it for them. But if they benefit from it, so be it. I'm not afraid to benefit other people. I'm afraid to benefit myself.
Right.
I'm afraid that if I choose to support myself, I will be seen as selfish. I will be seen in any number of things that would terrify me. When in reality, what I am terrified to be seen as is exactly where I am.
That's the lack of acceptance.
Mm-hmm. And I've done DBT therapy. I've done traditional talk therapy. I've done this, that, and the other thing. The 12-step program addresses in an unshakable foundation.
Unshakable foundation
what
is
I need to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm glad I'm doing it at 27, but I'd be glad if anybody did it at any age.
I did it at 27. That's when I got clean and sober.
It's a good time to do it.
Yes, it is.
There's
Or
no
20,
bad time to recover.
Was it 27 or 28? 1997. You're not good at math either.
97 is the year I was born, so it's 27 years.
Okay, so yeah, so 27. Or no, that makes no sense. It doesn't matter. Forget it. I was born in 68 and I got clean in 97.
How does it feel to have been clean so long?
It feels like it's a whole nother life. It's a whole nother life. If I look back at my active addiction, I don't even recognize it. It just seems like it's somebody else. I can't imagine ever using drugs again. I mean, I wouldn't say I can't, there's no guarantee of anything, but I can't imagine ever wanting to use drugs again. I can't imagine ever using drugs again. I can't imagine that. I mean, that it wouldn't make any sense to me. But that's God's grace. He really took that obsession away from me. The obsession was lifted. Was not on my own accord, but I did do the footwork because I was
helps those who help themselves.
Yeah, well, I was running out of burning building, hun, so it was pretty easy to do the work. I was running out of the burning building.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was so nice that you came and did this interview.
Hopefully I gave you something usable.
Of course, it's always usable. You're great. We've got 5 minutes to go to the Bhakti Recovery Group meeting now.
Exciting. I love it.
And let's jump over on the other Zoom call. Thank you so much for coming. Will you come again?
Gladly. It would be really cool to come again, and then people can see what happens in the recovery process since I'm just starting.
That would be so great. Absolutely. All right, let's switch over to the other Zoom link. Thank you again, and I'll see you soon. Haribol, thanks.
Thank you.
This concludes another episode. Thanks for listening. In order for me to serve this community to the best of my ability, I welcome feedback. Please write your feedback at bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to follow and give us a 5-star rating. Share this with family and friends. If you'd like to join our Bhakti Recovery community or just find out what we're all about, please visit our website at www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. That's www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. There are no dues or fees, and we meet daily. If you or someone you know is struggling with addictions and/or associated behaviors, you will find links in our show notes to various 12-step programs. Nobody seeking recovery need ever be alone again.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.